What up, y'all? What's the word? Y'all know what's up. It's going down. Smoke and mirrors. We in the building. We're going to talk for a little bit and we're going to take off, right? We're going to get this going because there's a lot of things that haven't been cleared for decades. And all of a sudden, things are coming out and they're starting to surface. A lot of people's morals must have had wars within themselves because a lot of people are starting to expose a lot of things that a lot of people didn't know about. On the picture, on the screen, is the ex-bodyguard of BadBoy Records, CEO Puff Daddy, and the whole BadBoy unit, right? And he's been talking for years about the situations that happened with Biggie Smalls and Tupac, and he's had a firsthand insight. Shout outs to BHJ_North K. What's up, big homie? We discussing some real life situations. Gene Deal been around for a minute, right? And there's a whole bunch of speculation about what everybody's talking about the Tupac murder, about the Biggie murder. There's been police that's been close to that talked about that murder, right? But everybody's acting like they don't see or hear what's going on. So we're going to get into revealing some things because Keffe D, which is a SouthSide Crip member from the West Coast, really don't know too much about the brother, but I've been watching him talk about Puffy offering $1 million and everything going on, right? Okay. Tupac got killed in Las Vegas. Keffe D went to court in Los Angeles, California for a case that had nothing to do with the murder of Tupac Shakur. Rest in peace, legend. Keffe D just starts telling everything. I guess it was to drop the plea, but here it is. It's a gang member, a high-level gang member in the West Coast who be standing on calling people rats, saying this one's no good, making people go do all types of stuff. He's the head. He got caught up for some drug situation, right? Pardon me, I'm just adding people. He got caught up for some drug situation and just told it all. Stuff that had nothing to do with what he was arrested for in California. He tells it all. I'm going to sit back, right? And I'm going to play this. And this is to all the young people out here who really wants to be down with situations like that. Look at what the big heads are doing. The people who sit at the top of the ladder, the top of the food chain, whatever you call it. These guys teach the ones under them, don't talk to the police. Don't snitch on your friends. Don't do all this stuff. But one of the main people that's telling, we're going to let Gene Deal talk. Shout outs to the Art of the Dialogue. Putting in this disclaimer real quick because the Art of the Dialogue interviewed Gene Deal. And Gene Deal was there when it all went down. Gene Deal wasn't there when Tupac got killed. He was there when Biggie got killed. In that situation, another one, Suge Knight, head of Death Row Records, get caught up in a whole bunch of stuff. Things start falling apart for him. He get behind the prison walls. And everything starts coming out to play. Come to find out, police officers that was hired on Death Row Records, that was doing security for Death Row Records, Suge claimed to not know of. Reggie Wright was somebody that he dealt with who hired him allegedly. Come to find out, one of the police officers, David Mack, was the one who killed Biggie Smalls. This is what's being revealed 27 years later. It's crazy sad that y'all gangsters or wannabe gangsters want to play around with life, play around and talk about other things Make decisions that could cost you your life, but y'all not doing nothing righteous by the ones that y'all bringing up behind y'all. Y'all want people to look at y'all and look at y'all like y'all people to be idolizing, when all you doing is sending these people into the fire. Let's hear what Gene Deal got to say, man, because I need to hear what Gene Deal got to say. Shout outs to the Art of Dialogue. Shout outs to Gene Deal. Make sure y'all go check out Gene Deal's show. It's called The Raw Deal. Make sure y'all check out the Art of the Dialogue, and let's get into it.
The police, right? They found bullets in Keffe D house, and they checking to see if it's connected to Tupac murder. Do you think Keffe D is that dumb, man, to still have evidence from 27 years ago?
Man, I can't speak on the intelligence of that man. You understand? It goes to show you how intelligent he is. He moved to Vegas. He must know what he's doing. You understand?
Why would he say that? First and foremost, Keffe D had evidence from murders that happened decades ago in his house. Why would he? I don't know.
I can't speak on how smart he is, what school he went to, how much education. That man used to run a multi-million-dollar drug ring. So he got some street game and some kind of intelligence if he did that, you know. But as far as the fact of them finding evidence like that, that would be cray-cray. That's real crazy. And if they trace it back to the ballistic, but I don't believe they have any ballistics that to trace back to those bullets. They can find bullets, but what ballistic they have to trace back?
Right then and there, you see that Keffe D's not really an intelligent person. Because if he would have kept his mouth shut by the code he lived by, he would have found out a while ago that the officer who killed Big, rest in peace, right, has something to do with Tupac's murder. Because if you pay attention to the reaction that I did on Suge Knight and them, it'll tell you that Suge Knight said if you solve the first one, you solve the second one. People don't understand, right, that not only was Keffe D's white Cadillac spotted, that's what they say, Keffe D's white Cadillac was spotted, right? Keffe D's white Cadillac was spotted. But they didn't tell you that there was another Cadillac, the same type of model, that was rented at the same time on the same night that Tupac got murdered. Orlando Anderson, if you look at all the footage of Orlando Anderson, he's brown skin. The shooter had a light skin on. Or they was just using Orlando Anderson as an scapegoat, because the history shows, right, that Keffe D had rented a Cadillac, right? Hold on 1 minute. I'm going to show y'all. Keffe D rented a Cadillac, right? I'm going to show y'all something right now. Show y'all something right now. This is what I want to show y'all.
It goes all back to 1996.
Right.
Biggie was murdered in March of 1997, being 6 months after Tupac was murdered. His death was seen as revenge for the Tupac murder from the accused SouthSide Compton Crips' ties to Puffy and Biggie. Russell Paul was the first detective placed to investigate Biggie's death, who began to uncover the Rampart Division's connections into Death Row Records. Paul would then link this connection into the death of Biggie Smalls, which ties into the larger theory that the same people were behind both hits which then
The same people with Dre Rivera, MVP. What's up, nephew? The same people was behind the hits. Did y'all just hear? There was a theory, right? But check how the theory gets deep.
used an East Coast vs West Coast, Bloods vs Crips smokescreen as a cover to hide behind. Suge Knight, in the 2020 prison interview carried out by Russell Paul's co-author, claimed that the same circle of people were involved in both crimes, which ties into this theory.
And the other thing is for Biggie saying that they saw the first one, they saw the second one, because it's the same people, same circle of people.
Suge Knight had also commented on this in his 2017
Same circle of people. It was already revealed that David Mack killed Biggie. David Mack was a police officer for the Rampart division of the Los Angeles Police Department. So if Suge's saying that if you've solved the first one, you solved the second one. These same officers that Suge Knight said he didn't know. People within the death row camp that was associated with artists saying that they saw these same people that Suge said he didn't know serving as security. And Suge told it because Suge really ain't got too much to live on no more. All that shit is over.
interview for the Fox show Who Shot Biggie and Tupac.
Sometimes if you saw the first case, you might saw the second case, but that never happened, correct?
Yep.
Kevin Gaines was murdered 9 days after Biggie by a fellow cop called Frank Liger. Russell Paul was made aware of the crime and began to investigate it. On the scene of the murder, Paul found the address of Gaines' girlfriend who lived in the Hollywood Hills, and when arriving is when Paul had came to find out that it was Sharifa Knight. When Kevin Gaines' locker was searched, developed photographs of Suge Knight and Tupac were discovered taped to the back of the locker. Russell Paul now became aware of the connection between the Rampart division and Death Row Records through nightlife management. Paul soon became aware of a lead which connected David Mack to the murder of Biggie Smalls. David Mack robbed the Bank of America on November 6, 1997, using his girlfriend, who was the assistant manager at the bank, to order in $722,000, which arrived just 10 minutes before the robbery took place. David Mack was seen on the bank's CCTV system carrying out the cash in the bags which he had just been delivered in. David Mack was arrested a month later, and when Russell Paul searched his home, he found a black SS Chevy Impala with chrome wheels, which matched the description of the shooter's vehicle in the case of Biggie Smalls. Along with this, Gecko armor-piercing bullets which were used in the murder were also discovered at his home, which were buried under the floorboards of his house. Not only this, but the same weapon type, being a 9mm which was used in the Biggie murder, had also been discovered. Police had also found a very strange occurrence in the garage. Russell Paul had found that David Mack had kept several photos of Tupac Shakur, which he had seemed to have kept sectioned off in a certain area of the garage, which seemed to be kept in a memoriam, which was described by the detectives as a shrine.
In the garage, next to where the Impalas parked, he had a shrine to Tupac.
Now, that officer, right? That officer, I'm going to give y'all some more shit. Watch. I'm going to give y'all some more. I'm going to let Gene speak real quick, and then I'm going to add on to what Gene's talking about.
Say that those were the type of bullets. They all had a type of bullets. You understand? They don't stop making bullets. They make bullets for every gun. You know what I'm saying? The bullets you don't know the tracing of a bullet until it goes through a barrel of a gun.
I know I did the interview with Chris Carroll, man, and he was in disbelief, man. He couldn't believe why, Keffe D would move back to Vegas, the same place where he committed the crime. He couldn't believe it, man.
Well, the thing about it is that what we're looking at, and Keefe cannot change what he told the U.S. attorneys. But if what he told Greg Kading in California, that could be something totally different. You understand? He could come out and say that, well, I didn't give Orlando the gun. I was made to say that. They told me if I say this, if I do this, if I do that, I could go free. He didn't make a deal with Vegas. So now, if Vegas come to him and say, yo, well, you told California that Zip gave you the gun and you tried to get a gun to Dre. Dre wouldn't take the gun and you gave it to Orlando. And Orlando did the shooting. Where were you at when all this happened? I was in the passenger seat. Did you try to stop Orlando? No. So what are you now?
He was in the passenger seat. He passed the gun to his homie. His homie said, nah, I ain't popping. I ain't doing none of that. You the head. Your homie said, nah. Pass it to your older homie. He said, nah. So you pass it to the youngin', and the youngin' supposedly allegedly reached out the window and fired off. That's not the case. So with all that you saying, with the crime that happened in Vegas, but you gave up this, you snitched to the California judicial system, Keffe D. You snitched. Gangster. Told. Gangster. You told. You snitched to California about a murder that happened in Las Vegas. Like, that can help you if Las Vegas comes and snatches your goofy ass up and bring you to Vegas and say, now we got you on this murder. You know something. And if you don't know what you supposed to know that's truth about this murder, you going down, stupid. You didn't see none of the other gang members because they not here no more. God bless them. Allah cover them. Whatever. You the only living person alive that was able to speak on this. You don't hear nobody else speaking on the murder. You doing it, getting on Vlad. You mad at Puff. Puff supposedly promised y'all $1 million. You didn't get the payment because you didn't do the crime. But your goofy ass jumped all the way into that fire because Suge already told people, if you solve the first one, you'll solve the second one. So basically he's telling you the same killer that was in Tupac's murder is the same killers from B.I.G.'s murders. How would Suge know that? How would Suge know that when Big was murdered after Pac? That means Suge was tied up in the conspiracy. And being that Suge got, let's just say he got life in prison, Suge just had a change of heart somewhere and wanted to just air it out. What was it? Messing with your conscience, Suge? All y'all busters over there. Suge Knight, use a wing. I don't even know you, but the things you doing is wing mentality. Keefe D, you about to go down for real. You about to be all up in the U.S. penitentiary for life, if not 20 years or better, because you can't follow your own rules and shut up. You got hit with a drug charge. You should have just, oh, I know what it is, Keefe D. California has that 3 strikes law for y'all. Aha. I got it. California got the 3 strikes law out there. So if you catch any felonies three times, not 3 consecutive of the same felonies, just 3 felonies, you can be out of here for life. That's why Tupac, not Tupac, Excuse me. That's why Suge Knight's case was moved. His violation of probation case was moved to Vegas. No, excuse me. I got it wrong. Tupac's case was moved from Cali to Vegas. That's why he was able to get up out of that situation in Vegas. Right, because if Tupac was in Cali, he would have went down early. Pause. But he would have crashed out early. Pac would have crashed out early if he didn't move that case. I don't know if it was involving him shooting the undercovers. No. Probably was. No, but it was a felony case that Pac was about to get slammed in Cali for. They had moved to Vegas with the help of Suge Knight, David Kenner, a few other people, some top criminal defense attorney in Vegas. But we're going to hear what Gene Deal got to say, man. Let's listen.
You an accessory to the murder. The only living accessory to Tupac's murder. So Vegas, if they doing what they supposed to do, will be getting down to the business of things. But the dude who was supposed to be doing an investigation on this situation, you know what happened to him? He retired. The investigative detective who spearheaded the raid, doing the whole thing, he retired. So somebody else got to take it over. It's crazy that he put himself in that situation without making a deal with Vegas.
You heard what he just said, right? You just became an accessory to murder. You ain't even make the deal with Vegas. Goofy, bro. We gonna listen though.
His deal was more important with Vegas, but California had some, what they say, some drug PCP deal on him, and they made him sign that. But you got caught with drugs in California. You didn't get caught with murder. How could they stop what happened in Vegas? They can't stop nothing that happened in Vegas. That's two different municipalities.
So what do you think is going to happen to Keffe D?
It depends on the charges. It depends on if Vegas hit him with a charge to accessory to the murder of Tupac Shakur. If Vegas hit him with accessory to the murder, he's going to go to jail until the U.S. attorney gets involved in it.
Y'all heard what he said? You heard what he said? He said he didn't make a deal with Vegas, so he's about to go down for that case. Keffe D just walked himself into the prison. Goofy. This ain't a shot to all Cali dudes because I got a lot of Cali bros out there in San Diego and Los Angeles, Compton. I played basketball in a few places, and I went to California and met some good dudes. I lived in a couple other states and met some good dudes from Cali. So a lot of Cali dudes, this ain't for y'all, but some of you Cali dudes, y'all don't think properly. And what y'all do is y'all hurt yourself in the long run trying to be the super gangster. Dig what I'm saying? Shout outs to the Art of Dialogue, yo.
The police, right? They found bullets.
Shout outs to the Art of Dialogue. They give you the drop. They bring it. They giving you the truth. We're going to keep going because there's some things we got to talk about, man. We got to understand what's going on as far as the situation, because Tupac got murdered. We all know that. Tupac got murdered, yo. So what we going to do is we going to open up. We'll talk about
Sleep with Faith Evans.
Yes.
We're going to open up where we talking about how the whole setup went down, how Pac was in a situation where he almost got killed, lost his life, and who was involved. A lot of people was involved, man. I'm going to run this back from, and if you want to learn about shout out to HBK Hendo, if you want to view and check out the vlog reaction I did on the Tupac joint, go check out my page. But we're going to give you a little bit of what happened.
They wouldn't get shot when bullets was flying all through their car. I said it in Before I Wake, which plays on Fuse Death Row for drug racketeering. Now, all along, when we were working together, I never knew that. No one never knew that. But the Rolling Stone magazine announced it. So Kevin sued him over it because the FBI released a 349-page document saying that in their findings that Suge Knight and Reggie Wright orchestrated and put a hit on both of them, Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac Shakur. That was the FBI's findings after they released their findings and decided to close the case on that murder investigation for them too. Now, that's what they wanted to do. The FBI did that. And the only reason why they can't bring anyone to trial is because they had 17 informants, and all of them said no, they wouldn't testify. So if you don't have no one to testify to the facts, you don't have a case, and the DA is not going to take it. So LAPD, being Biggie's jurisdiction of where he was murdered at, and then Las Vegas being Tupac's jurisdiction where he was murdered at, they're cold case files, and it's going to take somebody to have to solve them. Do I believe that the person that pulled the trigger on both of them are dead? I would say Tupac's killer for sure is dead. The other one, I can't say as far as Biggie goes. I believe Tupac's killer is dead, though. But I believe this. It was definitely set up.
No,
both of them. It was set up.
Based on your rock uncovering and flipping over, do you or did you see or were you leading to the fact that Suge had something to do with it?
And Puffy.
Now you say and Puffy. I don't know. Here's the truth. Okay, John 8:32, the truth shall set you free. I don't know absolutely one thing surrounding Biggie's death. I cannot answer not one question surrounding Biggie's death for two reasons. One, I was no longer working with Death Row in the security company. I was long gone. By the time Biggie was killed, I was unemployed, writing my book or whatever I was doing. So I cannot answer anything concerning Biggie, Puffy, because I don't know nothing concerning Puffy. Being P. Diddy now. I believe that someone out of Death Row's camp knows who set up Tupac's hit, is what I believe.
Based on your rock uncovering and where you were leading and things you were seeing, do you believe that?
He said, THC Mike, what's up on the check-in? He said, and this is somebody that was guarding Tupac that's in the circle saying somebody in Death Row knows who killed Tupac. Suge said, if you find the killer in the first one, you find the killer in the second one. Well, the killer the killer in Big's murder was a cop that was on Death Row's security payroll. So if Suge's saying you find the killer in the one, you find the killer in the other. The killer in Biggie's murder was police officer David Mack. So if that was the killer in Big's murder, then what you saying, Suge? David Mack killed Tupac too? And if he did, why? If he did, why? Y'all don't know out there that Tupac had put an order in on Death Row Records because money was being stolen from him. He was leaving Death Row to start his own thing. Same way Big was leaving BadBoy to start his own thing because it was already declared that Big was about to cut a check for over $60 million. And then mysteriously dies out in Cali because he was forced to go to California by his boss. Puffy, he was stealing from people. Jaguar Wright Called it. Y'all try to get her. Suge Knight said it. Tupac's main bodyguard said, I believe somebody in Death Row Records knows something, because it was talks about Suge, Puff, and Reggie Wright conspiring to kill Pac and Big and keep the East Coast, West Coast fueling going on, and had a bunch of people caught up in their feelings ready to go to war. Keep listening. Keep listening.
Suge had something to do with that.
What I believed in 1996,
Yes or no?
what I believe today, I would more or less point my finger to yes than no, and that being because we interviewed. I believe that someone out of Death Row's camp knows who set up Tupac's hit. Is what I believe.
Based on your rock uncovering and where you were leading and things you were seeing,
This is Tupac's bodyguard.
Suge had something to do with that.
What I believed in 1990.
Listen again.
I believe that someone out of Death Row's camp knows who set up Tupac's hit. Is what I believe.
Based on your rock uncovering and where you were leading and things you were seeing, do you believe that Suge had something to do with that?
What I believed in 1996,
Yes or no?
what I believe today, I would more or less point my finger to yes than no.
He will point his finger more or less to yes than no. Suge, why are you telling the truth on everything? Because you ain't going to get out of jail. You trying to get your sentence reduced, and it's not going to happen. You got ailments. You got a lot of things going on with you in the prison, and everybody's trying to get you. You done ran over people with the truck. You done did a whole bunch of things out there, Suge. Now you're sitting in a little cell right now, and you're thinking about it. You don't want to die in jail, bozo. So now you telling. If you find out the killer in one, you'll find the killer in the second. Tupac's main bodyguard, the one who stands by him everywhere he goes. He said he believed somebody in the death row camp know who killed Tupac or who set Tupac up. And he's leaning towards Suge more than now, with all the facts and findings that's happening and everything's turning upside down. He didn't believe it before because Suge had a way of persuading people in his camp. He was a bully. He was doing all types of stuff. He shelled his money around, and he had a group of street thugs that'll put it down for him. But the bodyguard said,
No, and that being because we interviewed witnesses and people that testified on camera in my documentaries, that Suge Knight and Tupac had a vicious fight in New York at the MTV Awards. And Tupac told one of the bodyguards, after he was finished with a video shoot, they were walking him to the airplane, he told this bodyguard, who's a real good friend of mine to this day, he said, I'm a dead man walking. And he said, Pac, why would you say something like that? He said, because I don't want to go to Vegas, and I got a bad feeling about it. And that was September 6th.
Tupac told the bodyguard that walked him to the plane, said he's a dead man walking because he knew what was happening. He was dealing with some real heavy players, and he realized that he made a mistake by signing that contract to get out of prison. Tupac could have did his 5 years in prison, came home and ran his own show, got with Suge, and ended up walking right into the devil's pit. And it cost him. Rest in peace, legend. You saw it. You should have left then. Why didn't you leave and dip and get on the plane and go and just lay low and don't even work with him no more? He could have did that too. Pressure.
It was a Friday because they had just finished shooting Toss It Up.
That's when the movie records, I think, was starting out.
Who Who was the
He wanted to leave.
Who was the big enticer for him to go to Vegas?
Well, here's the other thing. Everything, you guys are really good because everything that you're asking me, all these questions are in my book.
Why, thank you. We just saw the radio yesterday.
Tupac had some family matters that was going on in Atlanta, and he really didn't want to go to Vegas. He really wanted to go to Atlanta.
Tupac had family problems in Atlanta. He didn't want to go to Vegas. He didn't want to go to the fight. He didn't want to be around nobody. He wanted to be around his family. And anybody, shout out to Kidden_play. If everybody did their research on Tupac, Tupac was about his family. He was about being there to help matters out, especially if it concerned his family. So him going to Vegas was pressure. Suge pressured him. Go to Vegas. Because Suge had a plan for Tupac to get killed in Vegas. You heard the Bodyguard say Tupac had family situations in Atlanta. He didn't want to go to Vegas. Are y'all listening? I hope y'all listening. Tupac didn't want to go.
Who was the
He wanted to leave.
Who was the big enticer for him to go to Vegas?
Well, here's the other thing. Everything, you guys are really good because everything that you're asking me, all these questions are in my book.
Why, thank you. We just saw the radio yesterday.
Tupac had some family matters that was going on in Atlanta, and he really didn't want to go to Vegas. He really wanted to go to Atlanta to deal with the problems that was going on with his first cousin, which was one of the outlaws. And this is
R.I.P. to Fatal. Now, what they saying is Fatal and them, when they was alive, they was traveling. They got pulled over. CBK EP3. What's up? It was already stated that when they was traveling, Fatal had got stopped with a pistol. Fatal got stopped with a pistol. And when he got stopped with that pistol, it was a Glock 40, right? That's what they saying. It was a Glock 40. Fatal got stopped with the pistol. Shout out to Turtle Gang 914. Fatal got stopped with the pistol. Glock 40. The same pistol was used to kill Tupac. The same pistol was used to kill Tupac that was taken off his one of his members of his entourage a while back. That gun was never turned in. The FBI had their hands on it. The higher-ups had their hands on it. They held on to that. And they gave it back to some people, whoever they gave it to, because it was used to kill Tupac in Vegas a week later. A week later.
In my movie, Tupac Assassination Reckoning, is in that movie. And it's not even that I'm telling it. His family, Tupac's family, is telling it, telling that whole story. And he did not want to go to Vegas. He was not going to Vegas. And he had his mind changed and persuaded to go.
By who?
By who?
By Suge.
Does that have anything to do with him wanting to leave Death Row and start Amuru Records?
That there, when we were on Gridlock and all of that, they had already called an audit on Death Row. We were working on a set of Gridlock, and Yak Fula's mother was one of Tupac's assistants, and she came down to the set specifically to talk to myself and Kevin Hackey to tell us that there were some things going on, there were some changes going on, and they was no longer going to be working with Death Row, that they were doing an audit on Death Row because Pac wasn't getting all his money.
Suge was stealing. Why would Pac get an audit on Death Row? Suge was stealing. Pac was going to leave. Suge said, ain't no way out but death. It's death row. Pac was doomed from that moment.
And there was some problems. And
but we going to lead back to the big situation because I'm going to run that Gene Deal interview back. We going to. It's real. It's real, y'all. It's so real that nobody can understand what's going on out here. 27 years. 27 years, man. Both these young men died. 25? 25. Both of them. And they've been richer longer after they died than when they was alive. When they was alive, they was being stolen from. And now the money that they making is being given back. Let's go back to the Art of Dialogue. Shout out to the Art of Dialogue and Gene Deal, Raw Deal. Check them out on YouTube, man. We're going to get into their joint. Let's listen to Gene Deal throughout the whole joint. Let's see.
The police, right? They found bullets in Keffe D house, and they checking to see if it's connected to Tupac murder. Do you think Keffe D is that dumb, man, to still have evidence from 27 years ago?
Man, I can't speak on the intelligence of that man. You understand? It goes to show you how intelligent he is. He moved to Vegas. He must know what he's doing. You understand? I can't speak on how smart he is, what school he went to, how much education. That man used to run a multi-million-dollar drug ring. So he got some street game and some kind of intelligence if he did that. You know, but as far as the fact of them finding evidence like that, that would be cray-cray. That's real crazy. And if they trace it back to the ballistic, but I don't believe they have any ballistics that to trace back to those bullets. They can find bullets, but what ballistic they have to trace back to say that those were the type of bullets? They all had a type of bullets. You understand? They don't stop making bullets. They make bullets for every gun. You know what I'm saying? The bullets you don't know the tracing of a bullet until it goes through a barrel of a gun.
I know I did an interview with Chris Carroll, man, and he was in disbelief, man. He couldn't believe why, Keffe D would move back to Vegas, the same place where he committed the crime. He couldn't believe it, man.
Well, the thing about it is that what we're looking at, and Keefe cannot change what he told the U.S. attorneys. But if what he told Greg Kading in California, that could be something totally different. You understand? He could come out and say that, well, I didn't give Orlando the gun. I was made to say that. They told me if I say this, if I do this, if I do that, I could go free. He didn't make a deal with Vegas. So now, if Vegas come to him and say, yo, well, you told California that Zip gave you the gun and you tried to get a gun to Dre. Dre wouldn't take the gun and you gave it to Orlando. And Orlando did the shooting. Where were you at when all this happened? I was in the passenger seat. Did you try to stop Orlando? No. So what are you now? You're an accessory to the murder. The only living accessory to Tupac's murder. So Vegas, if they doing what they supposed to do, will be getting down to the business of things. But the dude who was supposed to be doing an investigation on this situation, you know what happened to him? He retired. The investigative detective who spearheaded the raid, doing the whole thing, he retired. So somebody else got to take it over. It's crazy that he put himself in that situation without making a deal with Vegas. His deal was more important with Vegas, but California had some, what they say, some drug PCP deal on him, and they made him sign that. But you got caught with drugs in California. You didn't get caught with murder. How could they stop what happened in Vegas? They can't stop nothing that happened in Vegas. That's two different municipalities.
So what do you think is going to happen to Keffe D?
It depends on the charges. It depends on if Vegas hit him with a charge to accessory to the murder of Tupac Shakur. If Vegas hit him with accessory to the murder, he's going to go to jail until the U.S. attorney gets involved in it.
Now, to be real honest with you, there's something that piggybacks Gene Deal's story, right? Keffe D just walked himself into a whole problem that he shouldn't even have. He's goofy. And I'm going to show you why he's goofy.
So Tupac's connection to bulletproof vests, which Hackey claimed he always made sure
Here's why he's goofy.
Moving one of Tupac's.
Here's why he's goofy, right? Here's why he's goofy. Here's why Keffe D's about to walk himself into a murder charge for no reason. He said Puffy offered him $1 million to kill Tupac. Since he's talking, he needs to prove it. Other than that, you can lose a lot by slandering somebody's name, and that's serious. Here's where Keffe D lies and gets caught in his contradictory statements. Shout outs to Insomniac Wide Awake, because they've been up so much. They figured this whole thing. Look, check what he's talking about. Look.
The California law, with Kenner doing this through a Las Vegas business attorney called George Kalisis. Kalisis was a Las Vegas lawyer who was known for defending police officers involved in corruption cases. George Kalisis also knew Suge Knight's financial advisor David Chesnoff, who was also a criminal defense attorney based in Las Vegas. George Kalisis was the business attorney for Club 662. A death row business manager was a man by the name of Steve Cantrock, who introduced Suge Knight to New York Colombo mob associate Robert Amira. Amira had been indicted in a Las Vegas case with members of the New York Colombo crime family, but the case had been dismissed. Robert Amira helped with Suge Knight being introduced to Helen Thomas, who was a Las Vegas businesswoman who owned a Vegas nightclub which was formerly known as Botany's. Botany's previous owner had been convicted for skimming money for the Chicago mob from the Stardust Hotel in Vegas. The club was then purchased by Helen Thomas, who was introduced to Suge Knight through Robert Amira, with the club being rebranded as Club 662, which spells out MOB on a keypad, representing Suge Knight's affiliation to the mob Compton Pyrus. 662, oddly enough, was also the Californian penal code for death row inmates. George Kalisis became the business attorney for Club 662, and with Kenner moving one of Tupac's legal cases to Vegas, Kalisis was now responsible for creating an event where Tupac could serve community service. Kalisis chose the night of September 7th, 1996.
Criminal defense attorney in Las Vegas who got Tupac's case moved to Vegas, set up an event where Tupac has to do community service in order to pay off that case that he caught. It was set up through Suge Knight's attorney, which is the attorney for Death Row Records. It's just so coincidental that they got him doing this show when they doing it. at a club that was put through a business partner of the guy you see in the picture right now, and somehow was tied to a club owner who knows a club owner who has a daughter who's trying to be an artist, who gets her CD to Suge Knight, and whatever the case that may be, right? Here's where it gets retarded at. Check it.
Where he held a charity fundraiser for a Las Vegas Metro police officer called Patrick Barry. The cop owned an organization called Barry's Boxing, with the fundraiser being held on the night of Mike Tyson vs. Bruce Seldon to create awareness for the charity. David Kenner had the circumstances approved by a judge, which included Tupac having to perform at the benefit gig for the Las Vegas Metro cop in order to serve community service. Tupac now had to travel to Las Vegas to serve the community service, otherwise he would have gone back to prison. Page 19.
Now, Tupac had to go to Vegas to do an event around the time, I want to say, a week before the Tyson Seldon fight, where the infamous beatdown of Orlando Anderson happened. Check this out. If you remember listening to it before, and I let Tupac's main bodyguard speak, his bodyguard said Tupac had family issues in Atlanta. He did not want to go to Vegas. Suge made his lawyer press the issue to get Pac to Vegas because the security for Death Row Records was already lined up, ready to kill Tupac. It's either Rafael Perez or David Mack or one of them dudes that's down with the whole crew. But it was somebody in Death Row that knew what time it was, just like Tupac's bodyguard said. Check this out. Keep listening.
One of the book Chaos Merchants by Russell Paul and Michael Douglas Carlin reads, quote, 23 security personnel are gathered and George Kalisis tells them that they cannot carry weapons. Subsequently, Reggie Wright Jr. gathers together security personnel a few hours before everybody goes to Club 662 to tell them that they cannot carry weapons. Unquote. Reggie Wright Jr. claims that this was miscommunication between Kalisis and him to the security, as Reggie claims.
Let me add on to that. There's a security officer that didn't want to give up his gun at that time. So he gave an interview and told everybody years ago about this particular situation, how the head of security, which is Reggie Wright, told everybody to give up their guns before they go up in this spot. One of the guards said, I'm not giving you my pistol. They said, all right, then you're not going to the joint. You got to go over here. That's the same cop they ended up firing. The bodyguard said it all, but this was told years and years and decades ago, and nobody wants to listen. Look how the pieces of the puzzle is coming together. Now listen and keep in the back of your head. Remember, Suge Knight said, if you solve the first murder, you'll solve the second murder. Listen.
He had told the security only to disarm before entering Club 662, as he already had armed officers providing security.
24 bodyguards that night were told not to carry weapons.
This had caused Tupac's bodyguard Frank Alexander to disarm early, being unarmed while guarding Tupac. His other bodyguard, Michael Moore, had refused to disarm and was taken off of Tupac and was told to go to Club 662 instead.
I had two of the toughest guys for him, and Reggie pulled him off of me. It didn't have to happen.
Kevin Hackey had been requested to work by Reggie Wright Jr., but Hackey was not in Vegas that night and also had Frank Alexander's security radio, which meant that Frank Alexander could not communicate with the security detail. Hackey was also Tupac's connection to bulletproof vests, which Hackey claimed he always made sure Tupac wore when he was with him. Suge Knight and Tupac, along with the bodyguards and an entourage of...
The Bodyguard said, no, not the Bodyguard, the FBI plant, Hackey, the one that got caught with the guns in the truck, the ones that was giving guns to the fans, to the team, so they can give them to the homies out there in Cali, whoever they was giving them to. That guy, the one that the FBI and the CIA put as a plant. He was security for Tupac, and when he was around Tupac, he made Tupac wear a bulletproof vest. When Pac didn't have that dude, Pac ain't had no vest on that night.
Blood gang members went to watch the Mike Tyson fight in the MGM Grand at 8 p.m. Following the fight, one of the Bloods pointed out Keffe D's nephew, a Southside Compton Crip by the name of Orlando Anderson. Orlando Anderson and the Southside Compton Crips were associated to BadBoy Records, whose main representatives were Biggie and Puffy, with Suge Knight and Tupac having animosity with them from years prior, which had continued to escalate after Tupac had joined Death Row. Tupac ran over and attacked Orlando Anderson, followed by Suge Knight and the Bloods. At 11 p.m, Suge Knight and Tupac were traveling to Club 662 so Tupac could perform his community service. They were stopped and pulled over by Las Vegas cops, who claimed that their radio was too loud. After being released and stopped at a red light on Flamingo Road and Colville Lane, a car carried out a drive-by on Tupac and Suge Knight's BMW, firing 13 times, hitting Tupac 4 times, and grazing Suge Knight's head. Bullet casings revealed that it was a Glock which was used in the shooting. Kevin Hackey went on Fox News in 2007, where he spoke on his beliefs about the murder weapon and how it had gone through the hands of the police, the FBI, and the ATF.
ATF. The FBI, the ATF, and the local police had their hands on the murder weapon. And the FBI CIA plant that was in Death Row Records is the one who's confirming it. Spooky. Check it out.
Hackey claimed to Fox News that he believes the Glock was the same weapon which was confiscated from Tupac's rap group member called Fatal, which Hackey had then given back to Death Row security. Hackey claimed on the 4th of July 1996.
Hackey said he took the gun off of Fatal and gave it to Death Row security. Who's Death Row security? David Mack, Rafael Perez, other dudes. The Glock that was, hold up, y'all. We got the, hold up, y'all. Let's listen closely.
To Orlando Anderson, followed by Suge Knight and the Bloods. At 11 p.m, Suge Knight and Tupac were traveling to Club 662 so Tupac could perform his community service. They were stopped and pulled over by Las Vegas cops, who claimed that their radio was too loud. After being released and stopped at a red light on Flamingo Road and Colville Lane, a car carried out a drive-by on Tupac and Suge Knight's BMW, firing 13 times, hitting Tupac 4 times, and grazing Suge Knight's head. Bullet casings revealed that it was a Glock which was used in the shooting. Kevin Hackey went on Fox News in 2007, where he spoke on his beliefs about the murder weapon and how it had gone through the hands of the police, the FBI, and the ATF. Hackey claimed to Fox News that he believes the Glock was the same weapon which was confiscated from Tupac's rap group member called Fatal, which Hackey had then given back to Death Row security. Hackey claimed on the 4th of July 1996, while Tupac was performing at the House of Blues, an off-duty Santa Monica police officer who was working security for the venue had searched Fatal and found a Glock. Napoleon, who was another rap group member of Tupac's group The Outlaws, revealed on his podcast in 2021 how Kevin Hackey had been selling guns to the group and were their connection to bulletproof vests. Napoleon further claimed he believes it could have been part of an operation by the ATF to track the guns.
There was a guy named Hackey. He was an undercover ATF. He was selling us guns so we could keep track of them.
Yeah.
And also he had a connection to bulletproof vests.
These are called ATF gun walking operations, which were exposed with Operation Fast and Furious, where what is called letting guns walk is applied by the ATF, with them providing criminal organizations with guns with the intention of tracking and tracing them. Group member Fatal's Glock was confiscated by the off-duty Santa Monica cop, with Hackey's FBI and ATF handlers then sending Kevin Hackey to collect the gun from the Santa Monica Police Department to have it traced and tracked through the federal database by the ATF.
Go over to Santa Monica Police Department to pick up this firearm.
Hackey says he first showed the handgun to his FBI handlers in 1996.
Hackey claimed after the gun had come back as clean, his intelligence handlers told him to return the gun to death row security. He then claimed on Fox News that he believed it was the same Glock which was used to kill Tupac.
A month later in Las Vegas, investigators say it was a .40 Glock handgun that killed
A 40 Glock handgun.
Tupac Shakur. Hackey believes the murder weapon was the same gun.
I believe it is.
Compton police claim to have found a Glock in a plant pot within a garden of a girlfriend of a SouthSide Compton Crip associate called Corey Edwards, with Compton police officer Tim Brennan claiming that it matched casings at the scene, but was then destroyed by the ATF when it was handed over.
This gun shows up. Give it to the ATF agents. They say the gun matched on the murder of Tupac. It was a positive match on the casings.
Orlando Anderson became the main suspect afterwards, being considered as a revenge shooting for the beating which took place 3 hours prior. Suge Knight, in a prison interview released in November of 2020, claimed the shooter was not Orlando Anderson and made claims of Rafael Perez and the Rampart cops allegedly being implicated in the shooting. Russell Paul's documents, which were declassified on the FBI website, reveal that Kevin Gaines and other officers of the Rampart Division were in Las Vegas on a special assignment for the LAPD on the night that Tupac and Suge Knight were shot at. Author John Potash believes Rampart cops killed Tupac and claimed it was the same division of the LAPD which assisted with the Robert Kennedy assassination in the...
Rampart cops killed Tupac. That's what he's claiming, right? Suge said, if you solve the first one, solve the second one. Who killed Big? David Mack. David Mack was with the Rampart division that was security for death row. So, there you have it.
Late 60s.
The cops that assassinated Tupac were mostly from the Ramparts division. That's one of 18 Los Angeles police divisions. The Ramparts division was the division found to work with the CIA to assassinate
ED on the night that Tupac and Suge Knight were shot at. Author John Potash believes Rampart cops killed Tupac and claimed it was the same division of the LAPD which assisted with the Robert Kennedy assassination in the late 60s.
The cops that assassinated Tupac were mostly from the Ramparts division. That's one of 18 Los Angeles police divisions. The Ramparts division was the division...
They keep saying the cops that assassinated Tupac are the same cops that helped the CIA kill Robert F. Kennedy. That's what they said?
Casings.
Orlando Anderson became the main suspect afterwards, being considered as a revenge shooting for the beating which took place 3 hours prior. Suge Knight, in a prison interview released in November of 2020, claimed the shooter was not Orlando Anderson and made claims of Rafael Perez and the Rampart cops allegedly being implicated in the shooting. Russell Paul's documents, which were declassified on the FBI website, reveal that Kevin Gaines and other officers of the Rampart Division were in Las Vegas on a special assignment for the LAPD on the night that
What was they doing there? What are y'all doing there? on a special assignment in Las Vegas the night Tupac got killed. What was the police doing there? The police dirty. Suge was dirty. There's a lot of dirty players, but it's coming out. The police officer who killed Big killed Pop. And if it wasn't the police officer that killed Big, it was his partner, Rafael Perez. Because Rafael Perez ended up being a rat and got 23 years, I think it was. Snitched on his mans in them.
Tupac and Suge Knight were shot at. Author John Potash believes Rampart cops killed Tupac and claimed it was the same division of the LAPD which assisted with the Robert Kennedy assassination in the late 60s.
The cops that assassinated Tupac were mostly from the Ramparts division. That's one of 18 Los Angeles police divisions. The Ramparts division was the division found to work with the CIA to assassinate Robert F. Kennedy.
Tupac's brother Mopreme Shakur has revealed in interviews that he feels as if the cops killed Tupac and feels that Orlando Anderson was used as a pawn.
Do you have any ideas as who you think assassinated Pac? Any suspicions about anything at all? Because I know a lot of people have their own theories and so forth. But what is Mopreme Shakur's views on who assassinated Pac?
Cops.
Orlando Anderson, when questioned on the murder, claimed he felt as if he was being used as a scapegoat.
I mean, I've been thinking, maybe I'm a scapegoat or something. I just want to let everybody know, what I'm saying? I ain't,
listen close.
Saying I didn't do it.
With Orlando Anderson and the SouthSide Compton Crips being blamed for the murder, a gang war had broken out in Compton between the Bloods and the Crips, which only started after a suspicious murder. Larry Finch was a cop of the Compton School District Police Department, which was Kevin Hackey's former division. Larry's brother, Bobby Finch, who was a bodyguard, was murdered 4 days after the Tupac shooting, on the same day that Tupac had died from his injuries. Bobby Finch was the neighbor to Corey Edwards, who Compton PD had implicated in finding the gun at the property, which was then destroyed by the ATF. Corey Edwards had warned Bobby Finch that the neighborhood was going to get very dangerous from the events which took place in Vegas. Bobby Finch was killed in a drive-by shooting, being shot 13 times in an unsolved murder, with the killer never being identified, with Reggie Wright Sr. becoming the lead investigator of the homicide. Bobby Finch being murdered on Southside Compton Crips territory.
Reggie Wright Sr. is Reggie Wright Jr.'s pops. Reggie Wright Jr., head of security for Death Row, got the Rampart cops. He's tied in everywhere around the board. He can't get out of this when it hit the fan.
Erupted a gang war between the Southside Compton Crips and the mob Compton Pyrus, as the Bloods were blamed for the murder. Michael Douglas Carlin claimed that he believes cops were implicated in the death of Bobby Finch, to then stage the gang war between the two sets to fit the narrative.
13 rounds, 12 hit Bobby. Maybe they're protected by cops. Maybe he was shot by a cop. And you have Reggie Wright Sr., who is the homicide investigator investigating this murder, and there's never a killer brought to justice.
The Labyrinth book reveals police informant reports of how Suge Knight allegedly delivered a load of AK-47 assault rifles being to Blood gang members in the Nickerson Gardens housing projects in September of 1996, after the gang war had broken out to be used in it. Kevin Hackey had been arrested after he was found to have a trunk full of AK-47s which he had been selling, which gives credence to Napoleon's claims. Hackey had claimed in the 2002 documentary Biggie and Tupac of how he believes he was set up by the intelligence agencies.
He was planted to be a rat in their whole movement. He's doing dirt in their whole movement. Dirty rat FBI, CIA, police plant got booked and felt like he was betrayed. You are supplying guns to our people. Federico, what's up now? You are supplying guns to our people to kill our people. What type of... And you a cop, black cop. You didn't care, Mackie who, hacky who.
For revealing he had classified FBI documents which revealed the FBI have Tupac.
They switched on him. The FBI switched on him because when he got booked, he gave up some information and said the feds got footage of Tupac's murder on video, and they didn't want to push that envelope. The FBI CIA plant that they planted in death row ended up turning around, giving up their whole plan. Because think about it, Tupac was followed by the feds everywhere he went. Suge was followed by the feds everywhere he went. They couldn't take a piss. They couldn't fart. They couldn't do nothing. So when he got murdered, it was on camera. And y'all still ain't find who killed him? Y'all letting everybody else figure it out? All right, we're going to figure it out.
Murder on tape being in private surveillance footage.
Hackey was incarcerated for having a trunk full of AK-47s. Hackey claims he was betrayed by the FBI. He wasn't given the promotion he was promised, and they then let him languish in jail. He had himself just been released from prison.
The MGM Grand tape of Orlando Anderson getting beaten down was made available to the public and spread throughout the media after David Kenner had entered it into evidence for Suge Knight's probation violation case in October of 1996. Suge Knight had been on probation and was able to avoid jail due to his connection to a prosecutor called Lawrence M. Longo, also known as Larry Longo. The CCTV footage spread throughout the media and blew up the Bloods vs. Crip theory and also the East Coast vs. West Coast theory. Suge Knight during this time turned over control of his accounts of $500 million along with his investments to his financial advisors being David Chesnoff and Steve Steiner, who were serving on his legal team with David Kenner. Over $13 million were churned out in legal fees going to the law offices of Kenner, being shared between the parties. In Suge Knight's 2020 prison interview, he claimed that an accounting firm who Jimmy Iovine had introduced them to had allegedly stole between $30 to $40 million off of Suge Knight while he was incarcerated, claiming that they were giving Kenner $100,000 a month, which Jimmy Iovine was getting a kickback from.
They was robbing them.
Accounting firm who Jimmy introduced us to, they stole $30-40 million. They was giving David $100,000 a month, and David said he was giving Jimmy a kickback from $100,000 a month.
Suge Knight also claimed that he was not supposed to go to prison for the probation violation, which he had been sentenced to 9 years, but feels as if he was set up by those involved in handling his case.
I never should have went to prison the first time I went to prison. They just played with the thing the way they wanted to play with it. So we was paying him for all the work he did as an attorney, and they was giving him $100,000 a month. That played an effect on me getting a violation when I shouldn't have got a violation.
This came after Kenner had created a conflict of interest between Suge Knight and prosecutor Larry Longo, as Kenner, while preparing Tupac's community service in Vegas, also moved Suge Knight into a Malibu beach house owned by Longo and gave Larry's daughter's tape to Suge Knight, promising her a record deal if Suge Knight were to keep staying out of jail from Longo's assistance. This information had come out during Suge Knight's probation violation hearing, which was seen as bribery from the conflict of interest created by David Kenner, which added towards Suge Knight's guilty sentence in his probation violation case. Suge Knight was sentenced to 9 years in prison, and Reggie Wright Jr. began to run the company for Suge Knight, with Reggie Wright Jr. getting advice from David Kenner. Suge Knight, in a 2020 prison interview with Michael Douglas Carlin, claimed he believes there was a conspiracy against him in 1996, which was to gain control over his company.
All this stuff really comes from because they want the ownership of my company. That's how it happened.
It goes all back to 1996.
Right.
Biggie was murdered in March of 1997, being 6 months after Tupac was murdered. His death was seen as revenge for the Tupac murder from the accused SouthSide Compton Crips' ties to Puffy and Biggie. Russell Paul was the first detective placed to investigate Biggie's death, who began to uncover the Rampart Division's connections into Death Row Records. Paul would then link this connection into the death of Biggie Smalls, which ties into the larger theory that the same people were behind both hits, which then used an East Coast vs. West Coast, Bloods vs. Crips smokescreen as a cover to hide behind. Suge Knight, in the 2020 prison interview carried out by Russell Paul's co-author, claimed that the same circle of people were involved in both crimes, which ties into this theory.
And the other thing is for Vegas, they saw the first one, they saw the second one, because it's the same people, same circle of people.
Suge Knight had also commented on this in his 2017 interview for the Fox show Who Shot Biggie and Tupac.
Sometimes if you saw the first case, you might have saw the second case, but that never happened, correct?
Yep.
Kevin Gaines was murdered 9 days after Biggie by a fellow cop called Frank Liger. Russell Paul was made aware of the crime and began to investigate it. On the scene of the murder, Paul found the address of Gaines' girlfriend who lived in the Hollywood Hills.
If you watch the movie, oh man, there's a movie out that talks about this where the officer kills a police officer, but the police officer had on plain clothes and he threw up the Damu sign. There's a movie out. I'm going to bring it up on the next vlog and I'm going to show y'all what I mean, because they made a movie about this cop, Gaines, who got killed by another cop, and it was in a movie. Word.
And when arriving is when Paul came to find out that it was Sharifa Knight. When Kevin Gaines' locker was searched, developed photographs of Suge Knight and Tupac were discovered taped to the back of the locker. Russell Paul now became aware of the connection between the Rampart division and Death Row Records through nightlife management. Paul soon became aware of a lead which connected David Mack to the murder of Biggie Smalls. David Mack robbed the Bank of America on November 6, 1997, using his girlfriend, who was the assistant manager at the bank, to order in $722,000, which arrived just 10 minutes before the robbery took place. David Mack was seen on the bank's CCTV system carrying out the cash in the bags which it had just been delivered in. David Mack was arrested a month later, and when Russell Paul searched his home, he found a black SS Chevy Impala with chrome wheels, which matched the description of the shooter's vehicle in the case of Biggie Smalls. Along with this, Gecko armor-piercing bullets which were used in the murder were also discovered at his home, which were buried under the floorboards of his house. Not only this, but the same weapon type, being a 9mm which was used in the Biggie murder, had also been discovered. Police had also found a very strange occurrence in the garage. Russell Paul had found that David Mack had kept several photos of Tupac Shakur, which he had seemed to have kept sectioned off in a certain area of the garage, which seemed to be kept in a memoriam, which was described by the detectives as a shrine.
In the garage, next to where the Impalas parked, he had a shrine to Tupac.
This has been seen as David Mack either being a super fan of Tupac from his believed association to Death Row Records, or a more macabre view of it being a trophy shrine under the LAPD theory. Suge Knight, in the 2018 documentary American Dream, American Nightmare, claimed when he looked Tupac's shooter in the eyes, he looked as if he had gotten himself a trophy.
When I look up, I see the, the fear in his eyes. He ain't got him a trophy.
Russell Paul followed this as a lead, connecting it to the death of Biggie Smalls, and began to investigate the Rampart cops' ties into Biggie's death. Russell Paul's investigative police reports from 2002 were declassified on the FBI website, and although they are redacted, claim LAPD officers were behind the death of Biggie Smalls. David Mack was shown to have taken 2 vacation days off from working at the LAPD, with one day coinciding with the night Biggie was murdered, and the other with the bank robbery. Russell Paul's information was used in a civil trial against the City of Los Angeles and the LAPD for a $500 million wrongful death lawsuit which named Rafael Perez and David Mack as being involved in the Biggie Smalls murder. Kenneth Boagni was Rafael Perez's cellmate, whose claims were included in the trial as official court documents, and although he refused to take the stand, his claims of what Perez had told him about the Biggie Smalls murder were included as court documents. Rafael Perez had exposed the Rampart scandal after he was arrested for stealing drugs out of the evidence locker in 1998, with detectives believing Perez was going to use the drugs to frame the cop who had killed Kevin Gaines. Rafael Perez made a deal to expose the Rampart scandal for a reduced sentence. Perez implicated up to 70 police officers in corruption in 1999, but never once mentioned Death Row Records or its associates. Perez was convicted to 5 years in prison in 2000, but only served 1 year. Kenneth Boagni was Perez's cellmate for a month and a half, with Boagni claiming Perez, while he was intoxicated on prison liquor, had made statements to him about being involved in the Biggie Smalls murder. Official court documents from Boagni, based on what Perez had allegedly told him, labeled death row lawyers working with ex-cops, including David Mack and Rafael Perez, to set up the hit on not only Biggie Smalls, but also Sean Puffy Combs. Boagni claimed that Perez had told him sometime after Suge Knight was incarcerated in October of 1996, David Mack had allegedly have been given the assignment to take out both Sean Puffy Combs and Biggie Smalls. The court documents claim Perez's cellmate Kenneth Boagni claimed Perez had stated that David Mack allegedly reached out to Amir Muhammad to assist with the hit, who was the godfather of Mack's child and had also have went to school with Mack. While David Mack was in prison, Amir Muhammad had appeared on a visiting list using incorrect details. Amir Muhammad's real name was Harry Billups, who Boagni claimed Perez had stated that he had allegedly become a hitman for hire, being for the Nation of Islam. According to court documents, Perez had allegedly told Boagni that they were paid $250,000 up front, with a remaining $750,000 being paid afterwards, after both Biggie and Puffy were murdered. Boagni claimed Perez had allegedly gone on to explain that Kevin Gaines was supposed to be a part of the hit and cut off both cars, while Mack and Amir then shot up both the vehicles to kill Puffy and Biggie, but Puffy's car ran a red light, which foiled the plan as Gaines failed to intercept the car.
A lot of people don't know that Gaines was seriously involved in this. He was supposed to cut both vehicles off and the other guy come around and shoot him.
This was corroborated by Gene Deal, as he told the driver to run the red light, and also identified Amir Muhammad as wearing a Nation of Islam uniform at the scene of the shooting in the 2002 documentary Biggie and Tupac.
That's him right there.
That's him.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Keffe D say you killed Tupac. You ain't killed Tupac. David Mack and Rafael Perez killed Tupac. They killed Big too. Suge said it. Gene proved it. You walked yourself into a situation where you're about to burn for talking too much. If you're out there playing in the field, the first thing you do is you're supposed to be quiet. But this is what happens with all these so-called gangsters that's coming up, even the ones that want to be the toughest, is when they get booked and they go up in that office, they cooperating like they civilians that just came out of middle school. And that makes y'all look bad, makes this whatever gang you repping look bad, because here it is, OGs, leaders, and all this other stuff. They are rats. Suge is a rat. Keffe D, rat. You gonna become an accessory to murder for no reason. Pray that you get up out of it somehow, but it looks like it's going to be lights out for you too. Suge done already told it. If you solved the first murder, you solved the second murder. So the murderers that killed Big was David Mack, and Rafael Perez has something to do with it. The Gaines dude has something to do with it. So those Rampart cops is the ones who killed Tupac. They just made you take the fall for it and made it look so good to where they rented a vehicle or had a vehicle in the impound that looked just like your vehicle. They made the hit because, like you said, y'all stopped and went to go get something to drink. If you talk about it, see, you talk so much, you gave off different stories, but you got an answer for that. So stay 10 toes when it hit the fan, because they already kicked in your door and they found evidence from when it happened. So you must know something, and you know for a fact that other people are involved. And it's not safe to say that Puffy, P. Diddy, his name might eventually come up in the air, and If that happens, the whole Bad Boy accounts is going to be on freeze until the matter is taken care of. It's a lot of things that's happening to Puff, and I'm not to say who it is and if they true or anything, but all of a sudden there's so much things happening that's coming out, and there's evidence somewhere in these places that's being proven that some of these things about this man is true. He probably did help conspire to set up to kill Big and Pac and put Suge in jail. Who knows? Stay tuned. You know, love is love out there. Shout out to everybody that tuned in. Next time, we do it again. You know what I'm saying?